Good morning. Morning, everyone. This new month of April. Yes, we are very glad that you're with us today. This beautiful, crisp morning of 10th of April. My name is Anthony Kuria. I'm your host today in this Aurum podcast, where we discuss all matters that relate to human resources in the workplace. With me is my co-host Zipporah Kuria. Zipporah Karibu.
Good morning, all.
All right. And yes, and also with us is Pauline Wambeti. I will do a brief introduction of who she is, but Pauline, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Right. Thank you. Now, as you know, we've always been, since the beginning of the year, we've been discussing various issues related to employee and employers, issues to do with HR. And this month, we want to discuss matters related to employee engagement. And today, we are very privileged to have our guest. Her name is Pauline Wambeti. Pauline is the MD of Nuru, Kenya, and she has been participating in community development for the last 15 years, and she has a wealth of experience when it comes to issues of community participation, community development. She's a graduate in development studies, and she's an Acumen Fellow since 2018. She's worked previously with uh, other organizations like UNEP, like peer educators, Doctors of the World, and others. You can see this is somebody who really understands the world of the NGO world. Now, today we want to discuss a bit more on issues to do with employee engagement. Zippy, probably I could begin with you. Where do you start as an employer in building a culture of employee engagement?
Thank you, Anthony, and good morning, our viewers. And I'm happy to be here this morning as we start talking about this hot topic of employee engagement. And to our viewers, we welcome your comments, we welcome your contribution. Like we always say, we don't know everything, and this is a forum for us to engage each other and to discuss the issues that are affecting us as employers and as employees. So to just respond to you, Anthony, where do we start when it comes to employee engagement? Let me say, number one, as employers, we need to come from a place of helping our employees understanding why do we exist? Why are we here as an organization? We need to help our employees understand what our mission is, what our vision is. What does that really mean? A lot of times we come up with mission and vision statements, but it's just another statement in paper. But we don't take the time to actually make employees understand what does this really mean? What does it mean for me as an employee? And where do I fit in this organization mission and vision? So even before we start talking about how employees can be engaged, they need to understand why we exist as an organization, where we are going, how we are going there, where we are coming from, so that again they can have a basis of understanding where they fit in that organization. So I would say as an employer, it's important for you to not just put in the mission and the vision statement, but also help the employee understand what does it really mean, where do they fit in, and once they understand where they fit in all this whole plan, then it becomes easier to start bringing up other the issues like how then we keep them engaged as they work for us.
Right, right. Zip, you've given it a very clearly, in a simple way, issues that regards to engagement. Because as you all know, it's one thing to be employed, to be there physically. We are seeing you seated, we are seeing you holding a pen, writing, or calling, or on your computer, or even going out there in the market. And it's another thing to be engaged mentally. Are you there? Yeah. Are you daydreaming when you come, taking lots of coffee, and you don't know what's going on with your life? Pauline, now tell us, having worked, working in a funded organization means that you have to balance employee expectations while ensuring they stay engaged and focused. Tell us more about that.
Thank you, Anthony. So I would say it's a tricky situation sometimes, ensuring that you achieve employee engagement, especially in a very versatile, dynamic environment. The NGO world is getting more challenging. And we have other issues that have come into play recently, the pandemic, that are really constraining the environment. But what I would say is what has worked for Nuru so far, I would say this is something that we are still striving to achieve, is to ensure, like Zipporah has said, the employee understands the strategic objectives of the organization, and then you ensure that there is inclusivity in the implementation of and achievement of these strategic objectives. So we strive to apply a bottom-up approach in all our implementation strategies, ensuring that even when we are reviewing policies, we are receiving feedback from the team, or when we are coming up with new strategies, the team is really engaged so that they feel part of the process. We've had to vary our leadership and management styles to ensure there is inclusivity. So you find at times we'll work through committees. There's a time we worked through a project implementation committee that was comprising of representation of all cadres in the organization. And this was to assist the senior management to achieve their strategic objectives. So you find when you include staff in contributing to strategic goals, then no matter what role they are playing in the organization, they'll feel part of it. They'll feel the responsibility to achieve this strategy is theirs, and they feel part of the process. They are needed, they are valued. Then again, checking in frequently. I value frequent communication. We have this culture where we encourage communicating early and often. So some of these values have really helped steer the organization to achieving employee engagement. Thank you.
Okay. As you were discussing, I was just writing notes. Some of the things that you're saying sound like the stuff that people are taught in MBA. I like the way you've said things like bottom-up approach. Yeah, you've talked about varying the leadership and management styles in order to engage, in order to gear up, employee engagement. You talked about creating committees or having committees where staff can contribute to strategic goals. This sounds like very deep, very engaged, very an organization that really draws from its staff in terms of their commitment, in terms of them contributing to what the organization is attempting to do, in terms of being agile and flexible to find the most best fit to keep the employees engaged. Zippy, what would you say about that? Do you think that can be applied to for-profit organizations to also do the same?
Thank you, Anthony. And yes, that can be applied, and it should be applied actually. And I like what Paulina said about the bottom-up approach, because a lot of times we always do the up-bottom approach, which sometimes is not always the best. And I think if we want to get our employees engaged, it's important for us to have that inclusivity, for us to have them engaged. One of the things I always say is employees always have better ideas than we have as employers. And sometimes when we don't give them the opportunity to give their views, to give their ideas, we lock out actually major potential for businesses. So it's important for us to actually include employees and get them to actually give us feedback, give us their views, be innovative. Because if we allow them to be innovative, they will enjoy what they are doing, and they will be able to actually give us input that will be very important for the business to grow. So I would say it's very important for us to ensure this inclusivity when we are engaging with our staff.
All right. That is very true. Whether you're working in the funded organization that may be non-profit, or you're working for a for-profit organization where the bottom line really matters. At the end of the day, yes, the strategic of the objectives of the organization have to be followed through, and making sure that the employees are engaged. For our listeners, if you'd like to contribute and comment, you're welcome to send your comments. If you have questions that you have for either us or for Pauline, you'd want to understand something that we're talking a bit more, feel free to send your comments. We are live on Facebook. If you're listening to us through Facebook, please send your comments. We are ready to read them. And if you have questions, we are ready to tackle them here. Here at Aurum Podcast, we attempt to get as engaged as possible with our listeners. Now, Pauline, I have.
I just wanted to actually add on something to that. And the other thing I think we need to be aware is both employers and employees. Engagement is a two-way communication. It's not just about the employer making sure employees are engaged. Employees also have a part to play when it comes to being engaged. And I would say there's a lot that goes in terms of trust, in terms of integrity, in terms of the communication between the two people, the employer and the employee, for them to actually ensure they are all in sync, they're speaking the same language, they are moving towards the same direction. And I think a lot of times we kind of get confused when we talk about employee engagement, and we confuse it for employee satisfaction. While that might be interrelated, I think it's important for us to understand it's not necessarily the same thing. For me to be engaged as an employee, I need to be tuned into what the organization is doing. I need to be trusted. I need to understand the communication that is coming from the management and what is the expectation of the management when it comes to me as an employee. So I would say, as an organization, as employers, as we try to bring the employees to understand what we are doing, also the employees need to understand they have a big part to play when it comes to getting engaged as an employee.
All right, thank you, Zippy. Now, Pauline, I would like to ask you another question. This one, I'm asking everyone who comes into our podcast because of the season that we are in. Now, how has COVID-19 pandemic affected you, and what have been some of the challenges that you've faced in keeping your employees engaged?
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, for that question. So the pandemic has really thrown the spanner in the works for us because we work in a remote area, and already we were experiencing challenges of network, power fluctuations, and now we have to work from home most of the time, and our interventions are actually community or centered, focused. So it's a lot of extension education happening, training, and field visits. So that one was really compromised by the pandemic. So we had to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to reach our farmers and how to ensure the employees continue to feel engaged. We could no longer now meet competently in the committees we've set up. And again, the challenges we've experienced are in a time when we are scaling our intervention and moving into two big counties away from Migori, where we've existed for more than 10 years. We are going into Homa Bay. We are now in Baringo, and looking at how now the teams work remotely and ensure that they still achieve their objectives. So for us, I would say it's really been a challenge working out ways of ensuring the employees continue to feel engaged. We've had to review our HR policy. We've had to embrace technology more. At least the team is quite versatile, is able to work through Google Docs. We are able to contribute. We recently reviewed our strategic plan up to 2025. We even modified our mission, and we did that remotely, which was a good achievement for the team. And then we've had also to look at innovative ways of reaching the farmers using the SMS platform, ensuring that even we have a flexi approach to work. We no longer are restricted to the 8 to 5 schedules so that we are available as managers to our direct reports when they need us. I've realized our staff, my colleagues have become very accommodating. So we'll have even meetings late in the evening when people are available so that we can be able to share challenges and seek for solutions. We work in a very dynamic environment and things change a lot on the ground. So it's important for us to keep communicating. So I would say we check in frequently, formally and informally. And when things don't seem to work, we have realized it's not good to force issues. You'd rather just adapt. So we had good sessions that have previously that have really prepared us mentally. It's just that we didn't know that we had to change gears so fast and so soon. But I would say some of the platforms that we were engaged in previously, especially virtual training, have really helped us to cope with the need for embracing technology.
Wow, wow, wow. Pauline, I'm writing down as you're talking. I like the fact that Nuru, first of all, as an organization, I mean, the challenges that you're facing compared to a modern organization in Nairobi are considerable. As you said, first of all, you're based in a remote place where prior to COVID, there was already power and internet connection issues. Then on top of that, you have farmers that you've got to engage. And some of these people on, internet connection, issues to do with smart technology. Smart technology is not there. Now you bring in COVID, where now people are no longer working in offices. They have gone out there to work your staff have to work remotely. So I like the fact that as a company, as an organization, you found a way to be extremely, what's the word? Extremely flexible, extremely engaged. I like the fact that you have reviewed your strategic plans and finding ways to engage your farmers. I mean, your farmers who are really your employees, your customers. But at the same time, internally being ever innovative. Zippy, what can you say about that? Looking at what some of the people we deal with, some of our, I would say clients who are not working with those kind of challenges that Nuru is facing.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Pauline, for that input. I think that's quite a good approach in terms of just keeping the employees engaged. And it's true that COVID actually came and it just threw everyone off without realizing what else we need to do. And with it has come major challenges. So now we keep our employees engaged. Even in, in areas like in Nairobi, where you're finding employees have to work from home, or even have to work in the office. Employees also are coming with their challenges. They are stressed about this COVID, whether I'm going to get contracted by this disease. Some of us, we have had our, close relatives or friends are getting affected or losing our loved ones. And this has affected us in terms of how we are engaging our employees, or how we are also getting engaged as employees. So I would say, yes, COVID has come with a lot of challenges that has affected our employee engagement. But I think the question would be then, how do we as employers then move to make sure we keep them engaged? If we have said they need to work from home, how do we ensure then we still keep the team together? What is the glue that is going to keep this team together and make sure we are moving forward? Because if we are not careful, then what will happen, businesses will be affected and we might close our businesses if we don't keep the employees engaged. I've seen situations where we have had to send staff away on unpaid leave, for instance. And this doesn't necessarily mean we have closed business. It means we are hoping that we'll reopen business in another few weeks or months. Then if we don't keep those employees engaged through communication, through having ways of just having conversations with them, then what happens when we reopen? They might not be tuned in to actually come back and work. So I think it's important for us as employers to also think about how do we adapt to the current challenges and still come up with ways and strategies to keep these employees engaged.
Right. That is very true. As again, like we said earlier, whether you're working in a funded organization or for profit, certain things have to be done. Companies would have to find a way to be engaged. And I like the fact that at Nuru, you're extremely agile. That is the English word I was looking for. Extremely agile. Knowing that the core focus of your existence is making sure that the farmer, who is the reason why you're existing, is able to receive first-class service. Now, Pauline, I would like to ask a question here. Zippy probably alluded to it a bit earlier. Which is, what does employee engagement mean for me as an employee? You know, you are an employee of Nuru, you are the MD, as it were. But what do you think, from your perspective? What does employee engagement mean for you as an employee of Nuru?
Okay, thanks, Tony. I would say that when I'm engaging with an organization, I have my personal goals, the ones that I'm setting out to achieve. And then I come in and align this with the organization I'm working in. And I've worked in several organizations where I've had to do that. So I would say, for me, I interpret engagement as having that realization that I'm actually needed, I'm valued, I'm contributing to the achievement of not only my personal goals, but also the organization goals. I'm actually part of the bigger picture. And I am really required for this organization to achieve what it has set out to achieve. So it's a continuous evaluation as an individual to figure out how do I fit into things. And as things evolve, am I still needed? Am I still relevant? And am I getting the feedback that I need for me to continue to improve on my engagement experience?
Okay. Wow. You know, you've made me remember one time, people as employees, when you're an employee, people just think, Mshahara, I get my pay, I have my perks, my salary is fat, I wake up in the morning, come to work, finish, go home. But there was one time I was engaged in an organization, one of these financial institutions, that was closed down. And the organization insisted, because we have hopes that will be reopened again, all employees must report to work. So we used to report, stay idle, play solitaire, whatever, snake and ladders, in the evening go home. At the end of the month, we get a pay, we are paid. After 1 year, we even got pay rise. But all we were doing is going to the office, sit, stare at the computer, fill crossword puzzles. You were not supposed to leave the office. You were supposed to report at 8 and leave at 5. That is the time I learned that being engaged is very, very important. Having a sense of value, having personal goals as an employee is very important. Because if you just come, where your only issue is getting a pay, you can go and work for an organization where you go sit, do nothing. Your employer does not want you to do anything. There is no work to do. But somehow every end of the month you're paid. You even get an increment, but there's nothing you're doing. So as an employee, how long will you last there? So it's good for as our listeners are listening in, for employees to understand that getting a job is more than just getting paid. It's about personal satisfaction. What are your personal goals? Why are you working where you're working? Beyond a goal, beyond being promoted and sitting in a corner office, is the work that you engaged in actually fulfilling? And are you deliberately desiring to be engaged? Yeah. Are you deliberately going to your boss and telling him, sir or madam, you gave me this scope of work. I think you can, if you add a bit more for me, it would help. I would be able to help the organization a bit more. That way you get personal satisfaction, even as you get your part pay. Zippy, I don't know whether you can add something there on that issue.
Thank you, Anthony. I think both you and Pauline have articulated this very well. But just to add on, I think as an employee, I need to wake up every morning and thinking, great, I'm happy I have another day in my, my table, and God has blessed me to wake up in the morning. I need to go to work energized. And I need to have a clear plan and a clear objective of what it is that I want to achieve. I think as an employee, that is where I would start. I have a goal that I intend to achieve today, and this is actually the plan on how I'm going to achieve this. The other thing is that I need to, understand where this organization is going, and I need to be energized and see how do I fit into this whole plan and also contribute towards what the organization needs to achieve. And the other thing, I think it will be having a clear understanding of how the organization is fulfilling its purpose and its objectives and how I'm fitting into that whole plan. I think if I wake up every morning with that kind of an attitude, I'll be able to achieve a lot in terms of my personal goals and help the organization I'm working for actually achieve more.
Right. Thank you, Zipi, for that. I can see comments are coming in. Rebecca and Beth Mugambi, thanks for tuning in. Anne Musimi, thank you for that kind comment that you're learning a lot. Now, as we come to the close of our podcast today, I would like to ask Pauline, now we've discussed about employees. What does employee engagement mean for me as an employer? Now, Pauline, you're the one who is writing the checks. You're the one who is hiring and firing. So tell us, what does it mean for you on the side of where you're part of management, having people that you need to motivate to be engaged?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I would say this is the most challenging goal for a manager, to ensure that the talent you bring in keeps engaged, feels valued, is always motivated. And for me, I would say working with staff who are proactive is much more easy for me. It's more beneficial for the organization. And so it's actually ensuring you are facilitating this staff to be proactive in their work. So you're not micromanaging, you are providing them with enough room to be innovative and creative. You're delegating responsibility and authority, and you're communicating the same so that they don't feel ambushed. I've found myself frequently communicating to the team anytime I'm adding on to their role so that they know what's coming their way. And it means when you have a team that is trustworthy, you are relaxed about and you're confident about their performance and achievement. So again, I would say cultivating a team that is trustworthy so that you can continue to trust them with more responsibilities, because the more you trust them, the more you're able to take up other activities, and the more you're able to grow the team. So when you challenge yourself to have activities that are involving, are interesting, are challenging to the team, so that the team doesn't feel bored with routine. And that is why I like varying my leadership style, my management style. I'll also invite the team to give feedback, and we even have an overview. How was the year for us? How do the quarters play out? And what style do I employ in the various quarters during the year, so that the employee can know that when we have high touch activities, this is what is expected. When it's low touch, then this is what is expected. And when we have a downtime, how do you keep them engaged? I've realized that we've had to do a lot of training, and we usually do this during our downtime. So you'll have to look for those activities that will engage the team so that they don't feel bored. Then you also avoid that routine that creates that boredom eventually. And then making sure that the team is always giving you feedback and you're checking in and communicating frequently.
Wow, those are very good points. That as an employer, you've got to be on your toes to make sure that you're engaged. You first of all you hire right. I like the way you've said that you have a trustworthy team, people whom you can leave them working even as you handle different aspects of your work. Then obviously interesting activities, handling doing trainings when things are having downtime, and inviting feedback, corporately from time to time. Those are very, very important points. Zipi, what's your view on the same?
Thank you, Anthony. I think Pauline has put it out very well. And just to add on to what she has said, I think it's about positive attitudes and behaviors that lead to improved business outcomes. And of course, when we are talking about employees being trustworthy, I think trust is something that is earned. And as an employee, you need to be, you need to earn that trust from your employer so that they are able to trust you with more responsibilities. It's about how do we ensure employees are placed in the right jobs? How do we ensure what they are doing is actually what they do best? Because sometimes we can have employees who are misplaced in different roles and they are not engaged because they don't even know what they are doing. They are struggling to actually perform in that position. So it's important for us to also know that our employees are placed in the right positions. It's important for us to know as employers, do they know what they're supposed to do? Do they know what their KPIs are? Are we articulating that well to them, or are we allow them to just, work in the dark? Then we get to a place where they're not performing and becomes a bit of a challenge because they're not engaged. I think it's a whole lot of things that as employers we need to do to ensure we keep them engaged. Pauline has talked about training. How often are we training them about what is our expectations? A lot of times we don't display what our expectations are very clearly and over. We say it once and we expect them to understand that. So I think it comes from a place of as an employer being very intentional on how you're engaging your team, how you are helping them understand what it is they're supposed to be doing, and holding them accountable so that again you make sure you're achieving what you need to achieve as an employer. So again, when we discuss about this subject of employee engagement, it's not just about the employer, it's also about the employee and the attitudes the employees are bringing to the workplace, and also marrying that with what the employer's objectives are.
Wow, thank you, Zippy. Those are good points. Responsibility goes both ways. Employer, employee. You as an employer, you create the environment, you set the goals, then employees come in. It's like an airplane either landing or taking off. You know what is required of you, and you move on. Pauline, what's your closing remarks? Probably you could tell us, what Nuru does, how, if any of our listeners would like to engage with you or with Nuru, tell us, sell yourself as it were.
Nuru is a local organization that is working with communities in remote rural areas to improve their livelihood so that they can lift themselves out of generational poverty. We are currently working in Migori County, Homa Bay, and Baringo counties. We have the livelihoods program. We have market linkages and cooperatives, and the leadership training and development as our key programs. And we are quite rigorous with our monitoring and evaluation. And if you look at our website, you'll have a feel of what we do. You'll also get to interact with our evaluation reports. And I have a versatile team that is quite competent and eager to reach the communities. So if you have a way in which we can work together to ensure that our communities do not continue to experience extreme poverty, you're very welcome to join Nuru. And thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Pauline. You've really, in a nutshell, just told us what Nuru does. And for those of us, if you're listening, you're watching, you'd want to know more about Nuru Kenya, what is it that they do, understand a bit more. As Paulina said, you can get in touch with Nuru Kenya directly through her, or you can get in touch with us at Aurum Consultants through our email address, our website, our LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube connections, which are scrolling at the bottom of your screen. And now, Zipporah, what can you say as we come to a close?
Thank you, Anthony. I think my parting shot today is let's embrace employee engagement, both as employees and as employers. Let's see how we can work together as teams to make our organizations better. I always believe when you've been given a job, it's an assignment. So for the season you are doing that assignment, how are you going to make sure you're doing it to the best? How are you going to get engaged with your employer to make sure you're fulfilling what your purpose is during that season that God has allowed you to be there? So I would say let's embrace engagement and let's look at it from a perspective of objectivity so that again we can take our organizations to the next level.
Right. Now with that, we come to the close of our podcast today. Thank you, Pauline, for coming in. I'll look for. I'm sure we can be able to get you once more at some time in the future, that we can discuss more issues to do with even what you do, even things to do. How do you handle issues to do with the specific type of employees that you have to engage to be able to do the unique calling that Nuru is. And we hope to have you here hopefully sometime in the future. But with that, we come to the close of our podcast today. We've discussed a lot about employee engagement, and we'll keep talking about these and other matters in the coming podcasts. Remember that we are always on air from every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. And Aurum podcast is where we discuss all matters that relate to HR. Thank you for logging in. We hope stay safe, wear your masks, sanitize, keep social distance, keep praying, eat healthy. We would want to have you here together with us next week. With that, goodbye. See you next week. Thank you.